English vocabulary.
Right.
But this goes a little deeper than just knowing the word for chair.
Exactly. And there's a cognitive science element to this as well.
Okay.
You know, when you start naming the objects around you in English, you're essentially bypassing that translation step in your brain.
Yeah.
You're creating a direct link between the visual image of that object and the English word for it.
Right.
And that strengthens the neural pathway.
So are you saying that, like, if I look at a book and I say book,
yeah,
I'm making a stronger connection in my brain than if I look at a book and think libro?
Precisely. You're cutting out that middleman of your native language.
Interesting.
And that's a huge step towards thinking directly in English.
Okay, cool. And
right, which can be a nightmare for English speakers.
Yeah, so she didn't have to deal with that when she was learning English, obviously.
Of course.
But that step of naming objects also really helped her to focus on pronunciation.
Absolutely, because as you're saying these words out loud,
right,
you're also training your mouth to produce the correct sounds.
Right. And speaking of pronunciation, I mean, that's kind of her whole thing.
Yeah, that's her passion.
That's what she's known for.
Yeah, she's an opera singer by training.
Wow.
And she learned German, French, Italian, all these languages.
Wow.
And she realized that there weren't really great resources out there that focused on pronunciation.
Right.
So that's really what motivated her to start her YouTube channel and her academy.
So it's not just about naming the objects. It's about really paying attention to how you're saying the word.
Exactly. Like, take the example from the video, closet.
Closet.
Box. Million subscriber button.
Million subscriber button.
Million. You know, say it out loud, focus on the sounds.
Okay, so let's say I'm looking around my office right now, and I see a computer.
Okay.
And I'm not totally sure how to pronounce computer correctly. What do I do?
Well, you have so many resources available to you these days.
Yeah.
You know, online dictionaries often have audio pronunciations.
Oh, that's right.
So you can hear how the word is supposed to sound. And there's also this fantastic website called Youglish.
Youglish?
Yeah, Youglish.
Okay.
And it lets you search for any word, and then it shows you clips from YouTube videos of real people using that word.
Oh, wow.
So you can see how it's pronounced in different contexts.
That's really cool. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's incredibly helpful. And Rachel actually uses Youglish in the video to illustrate the pronunciation of computer.
Okay.
Because native speakers often use a flap sound for that middle T.
A flap sound?
Yeah, it's like a quick little tap of the tongue against the alveolar ridge.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like a hard T.
No, it sounds more like compura.
Oh, wow. So computer, almost.
Yeah, you barely even hear the T.
Huh. Interesting.
And it's not just about individual sounds either. You also want to pay attention to things like syllable stress.
Right.
Like in computer, the stress is on the second syllable, computer.
Computer.
Exactly.
Okay, so even though this seems really basic, this is a really important step.
It is. It's laying the foundation for thinking in English.
Okay.
And the video makes a good point that even if you only have like a minute or two, you know, just take that time to look around and name as many things as you can in English.
Right.
It all adds up.
Every little bit helps.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this foundation with single words. How do we move beyond that?
Well, the next step is to start thinking in simple sentences.
Okay.
And the advice here is to literally right now think at the beginning of a sentence, I'm, and then just fill in the blank.
Okay.
I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm working.
I'm recording a podcast.
Exactly.
I'm having fun. Okay, so just that simple act of starting a sentence in English.
It gets your brain working in English.
Okay. And then we can take that a step further and start to describe our surroundings.
Yes.
In simple sentences.
Absolutely.
So, for example, I'm looking at my desk right now, and I could say, my desk is messy.
Perfect.
My chair is comfortable.
Excellent.
The window is open.
Yay. See, you're getting it.
Okay, cool. And what if I want to describe something, but I don't know the word for it?
Then look it up.
Okay.
And here's the memorize the entire phrase.
Oh, okay.
Don't just learn the isolated word.
So, like, instead of just learning the word for window, I would learn the phrase, the window is open.
Exactly. Because that's how you'll actually use it in real life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're learning in context.
Yeah.
And kind of building on that idea, the video talks about using an English-only dictionary.
Ah, yes, this is a game changer.
Okay, so tell me more about this.
Well, the idea is that when you're constantly using a bilingual dictionary, you're reinforcing that translation process.
You're going back and forth.
Exactly. And we're trying to break free from that.
Right. We want to think in English.
Yes. So by using an English-only dictionary,
Oh,
you're forcing your brain to understand new words within the context of the English language.
so instead of seeing the word window and thinking ventana,
Right.
I'm seeing the word window and reading a definition of window in English.
Precisely. And that helps to solidify the word as an English concept in your mind.
So it's almost like learning English through English.
Exactly.
I like that.
Mhm.
Okay, and are there specific types of dictionaries that are better for this?
Yes, definitely. You want to look for something called a learner's dictionary.
A learner's dictionary.
Yeah, these are dictionaries that are specifically designed for people who are learning English as a second language.
Okay.
And they define words using simpler, more common vocabulary.
Oh, okay. So it's not like the Oxford English Dictionary with all the really obscure words.
No. You want something that's clear and easy to understand?
Got it. Yeah. So I'm picturing like Merriam-Webster Learner's Dictionary.
Exactly. Or the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, or the
Yeah.
Cambridge Learner's Dictionary. There are a lot of great options out there.
And I can imagine that when you first start using one of these dictionaries, it might feel a little slower.
Yeah, you might be tempted to go back to your trusty bilingual dictionary.
Right.
But stick with it,
Okay.
because you'll find that you're actually understanding the words on a much deeper level.
So it's worth the effort.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so we've started by naming objects,
Mhm.
then we've moved on to simple sentences,
Mhm.
and now we're using an English-only dictionary. What's next?
The next step is to start having conversations with yourself in English.
Wait, talk to myself.
Yes, in English.
Out loud.
Well, you can do it out loud or just in your head.
Okay.
The important thing is to get your brain used to forming complete sentences in English.
But that sounds kind of weird. Like, am I just going to be walking around muttering to myself?
You don't have to make it weird. Just think of it as a relaxed, no-pressure practice session.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about speed or grammar.
Okay.
Just focus on expressing yourself in English.
But what kind of things would I even talk about?
Anything. You can describe what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling.
Okay.
You can even have imaginary conversations with people.
So like role-playing.
Exactly.
Okay. And Rachel actually mentions that she used this technique herself.
She did. She was learning Spanish.
Okay.
And she remembers driving from Sarasota to Gainesville by herself.
Wow, that's a long drive.
It is. And she spent the entire drive talking to herself in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So if she
Yeah.
can do it, you can do it.
Okay, so for those of us who might feel a little shy or awkward about talking to ourselves,
Yeah.
what advice would you give?
Be patient with yourself. It takes time to get comfortable.
Okay.
And start small. Maybe just narrate your actions as you're doing them.
So like I'm making coffee.
Exactly. Or I'm opening the door.
I'm closing the window.
Perfect. You're getting it.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
And how much time should I be spending on this every day?
The video suggests starting with just 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah, and commit to doing it for 30 days.
30 days. Okay.
And see what happens. You might be surprised by how much progress you make.
And if I'm seeing results after 30 days?
Then keep going.
Okay.
Another 30 days and another 30 days. It's all about building that consistency.
Consistency is key.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm feeling more comfortable with my self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using my English-only dictionary. I'm naming objects. What's next?
Well, now it's time to start changing everyday life things to English.
Everyday life things, like what?
Well, think about your phone.
Okay.
Change the language settings to English.
Okay.
Your computer, your tablet.
So everything's in English.
Yeah. Immerse yourself as much as possible.
Right.
And it's not just about your devices.
What else?
Your calendar.
Oh, yeah.
Switch it to English. So you're seeing the days of the week and the months in English.
Okay.
Your to-do list, your grocery list.
All in English.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And what about your social media?
Social media.
Yeah, change the language settings on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter.
So instead of seeing solicitud de amistad, I'm seeing friend requests.
Exactly. It's
Exactly.
those little changes that can make a big difference over time.
And it's not just about passively seeing English.
Yeah.
It's also about actively using English.
Yes.
So like when I'm searching for something online.
Do it in English.
Okay.
When you're reading the news.
Read it in English.
Exactly. And if you keep a journal.
Write it in English.
Yes. The more you can incorporate English into your daily life,
Yeah.
the better.
Okay. And one thing I really liked from the video was the idea of taking 2 minutes every morning
Yes.
when you wake up to just think about your day ahead.
In English.
It's in English.
It's a great way to set the tone for the day.
Right. Get your brain in that English mode.
Exactly.
Okay. And she also gives this great example of doing laundry.
Yes. The laundry example.
But she talks about like creating an internal monologue in English.
Yeah.
So as you're sorting your clothes, you might think to yourself, Okay, these are the whites. These are the darks.
These need to be washed on delicate.
This is a new shirt. I don't want it to shrink.
Exactly.
So you're basically narrating your life in English.
Precisely.
I like that. Okay, so we're really starting to live in English now.
We are. And that leads us to the next strategy.
Okay.
Learning how to do one thing in English.
One thing. Like what kind of thing?
It could be anything, really.
Okay.
But the key is to choose something that you're interested in
Yeah.
and then find resources in English to teach you how to do it.
So for example, I've always wanted to learn how to bake sourdough bread.
Perfect.
So I would find a recipe in English.
Yes.
I would watch YouTube videos in English.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just immerse myself in the world of sourdough bread in English.
Exactly. And in the process,
Yeah.
you'll be learning new vocabulary.
Right.
You'll be improving your reading comprehension.
And my baking skills.
And your baking skills.
Yes.
It's a win-win.
Okay, so we're naming objects, we're thinking in sentences, we're talking to ourselves, we're living in English, we're learning new skills in English. How do we keep track of all this?
That's where the next strategy comes in.
Okay.
Keep track of your progress in English.
Okay, so like a journal?
It could be a journal or just a simple notepad.
Okay.
But the important thing is to write down what you're doing every day.
Okay, so give me an example.
Sure. So you could write something like, today I named everything in my living room in English.
Okay.
Or I watched a 10-minute news report in English.
I listened to an English podcast.
Exactly. And you don't have to write a novel.
Okay.
Just a few bullet points.
Okay.
But that act of writing it down can be really motivating.
Right, because you can see your progress.
Exactly. And it helps you to stay accountable.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of the video.
We are.
What's the last tip?
The last tip is to recap your day in English before you go to sleep.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Most people spend at least a few minutes lying in bed before they actually fall asleep.
Right.
So use that time to mentally review your day in English.
Okay, so I would just, like, think about everything I did.
Yeah.
And say it to myself in English.
Exactly. And you can keep it simple. You know, today I went to work, I had lunch with a friend, I watched a movie.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
Okay, so what's the benefit of doing this?
Well, for one thing, it's another opportunity to practice thinking in English.
Right.
But it also helps to consolidate your learning.
I don't know. So.
Well, when you're sleeping, your brain is busy processing and storing information.
Okay.
So if you've been thinking in English all day, and then you recap your day in English before bed, you're giving your brain a final boost.
Interesting. And some people even say that they start to dream in English.
I've heard that too.
If they do this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so to recap, we've talked about naming objects, thinking in simple sentences, using an English-only dictionary, talking to ourselves, changing everyday life things, to learning new skills in English, tracking our progress and recapping our day in English.
That's a lot.
It is, but it's all really actionable advice.
It is.
And I think the key takeaway here is that if you want to think in English, you have to start living in English.
I completely agree. Surround yourself with the language as much as possible.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mistakes are part of the learning process.
Exactly. So embrace them. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I have a question for our listeners.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's one small change that you can make today to start thinking more in English?
Yeah, what's one thing you can commit to doing differently?
Maybe it's naming objects in your house.
Maybe it's changing the language settings on your phone.
Or maybe it's just taking 2 minutes to talk to yourself in English.
Whatever it is, just start small and be
Future deep dives into other related topics.
Absolutely.
Like how to effectively expand your English vocabulary.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. But for now, keep practicing, keep learning.
And keep thinking in English.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.